Okay, welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I'm Jessica Lorimer, sales coach and leadership expert. And today I'm joined by somebody that I'm truly honoured to have co-present beside me today. Welcome, Louise Harbutt. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here.
So it's funny because you're in the dotties and you're somebody that I've known, you're somebody that I've taken advice from. And you do this, I don't know really what to call it, but I'm going to go with miracles, right?
We'll go with that.
Miracle worker. Because you work in a space that I had previously not really known anything about, if I'm honest, and you deal with intuitive leadership and dealing with issues that arise in people's businesses, and you kind of feel them out. And this all sounds very woo for somebody like me who is not at all woo. And I know that we've kind of had that conversation before. I've been like, yeah, it's great that you do all this stuff. I don't really know how it works, but it does. So all good. But you are able to kind of tap into people and understand what they might be missing right now that they can't see for themselves. And you give them that outside perspective. Is that a good enough summary?
Yes, for someone who says they're not woo, that is a pretty good summary.
I try. So what is the kind of formal download on what you do and who you help?
So I help female entrepreneurs who have reached a certain level in their business where fear is playing a little bit stronger part than they would particularly like it to do so. Or their limiting beliefs are coming in. Like we were saying, it's like an entrepreneurial roller coaster. There are times when you feel you're really on it and you can do this and it's no problem. And there are days when you wake up and go, I don't think I can show up today. I don't think I can do this. And we all have those. However, sometimes there is this ongoing feeling or emotion that something's not quite right, or they're not really reaching that level of confidence or potential or place in their business that they know in their heart they can, but there's something stopping them and they're not quite sure what that something is. And what I'm able to do is intuitively know what that fear is or that limiting belief or that emotion is, and I do that in a very woo way for those people who aren't, and I do it by channeling in, and I use a lot of my connection to the universe. And I can, when someone comes to me and says, I have this fear, I know whether that's the real fear stopping them or whether we have some deeper work to do. Because when you work on the fear that's really stopping you and you clear that, then suddenly all those fears that you thought were stopping you actually were just really rooted by this one thing that you haven't worked on.
Yeah, 100%. So I think it's really interesting because the idea of fear comes up so much now. And I know that it's, for me, when I was working in corporate, fear wasn't really something that I would say, experienced to the same degree that I do perhaps now, or that I have over the kind of past 3.5 years. Because ultimately, it wasn't me that was really having to do anything. If I screwed up, then the company brand was the umbrella, and it saved us all from that. And if I screwed up, there was always going to be somebody who was higher up than me who could fix the problem, who could smooth it over. And I think one of the biggest problems that I had coming into entrepreneurship was that I suddenly had to take 100% responsibility. And actually, that's really challenging. That really is a little bit scary. And I think that kind of sets us into this overload of, oh my God, now everything is scary because everything comes into this like taking full ownership piece. So there'd be days where I'd be like, oh my God, I'm terrified to just do anything. Like if I respond to this email, it might take me like 3 or 4 hours because if I write the wrong thing, what will happen? And you go through this kind of spiral of what if to the nth degree. Exactly. Rather than just doing. And that stops so many people. I see so many people who just have complete paralysis around basic tasks, not because they can't do them, but because they're spending so long thinking, what if?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's it. That I would call it the what if train.
Yeah.
Because once you start on it, but if I do that, what if this happens? And if I do that, what if this happens? And suddenly you are gripped by your fear.
Yeah.
10 what ifs, 10 stations or 10 what ifs down the line, 10 of which might never happen, 9 of which might never happen. You don't know because they're all what ifs. But you're right, that fear comes in because suddenly it's all about you and you are responsible. And as you say, when you work in corporate, yeah, you really want to do a good job, and yes, you don't really want to upset your boss. However, the buck often doesn't stop with you. And the other thing is that you're not putting yourself out there. You're not putting your personality out there, because what happens is once it's us going out there, it's not just a business, is it? Because most of the people that we talk to and my clients they are their business. That's what they're doing.
I think we become really attached to our businesses, and I feel like sometimes we don't actually detach enough to give ourselves room to make the best decisions. Yeah. Because, what we tend to do, and what I see an awful lot, particularly with sales, is that people often attach their self-worth to a number rather than stepping back from it and saying, this sale may come off, it may not come off. Whatever happens, I'm still the same person. I still have the same values. And instead, we really do let fear in the front seat, to kind of paraphrase Brene Brown. She's always very much, fear can be the passenger, but you can't let it drive the car.
Yeah.
And I think we see an awful lot of entrepreneurs who are just in that phase where fear has totally taken over. It's driving the car, it's doing everything. And it really stops them from making good decisions. It really stops them from making sales. It really stops them from great, authentic marketing, and I think we do need to step back from the belief that we build a personal brand and that it's directly attached to us. You can build a personal brand that has no reflection on your self-worth or anything at all. You don't have to take things like trolls seriously. You can just let it go. And I think that's the big thing for me about your work, is that you do help people to do that and see that actually it's nothing personal.
It is. And you've hit the nail on the head, exactly that. It's very difficult to separate yourself from somebody saying no to your product or program, or someone, as you say, the trolls, or relating the numbers to your own self-worth, to how much whether you're good enough, or like imposter syndrome is another thing that comes in a lot. Who am I to be working at this level? Who am I to be charging at these prices? Who am I to be doing this? Because everything comes in can come in on a personal level, and it is being able to let go of that. Because when someone says no to not working with you, it's not because of you. It's because it's not the right time for them, or it's not the right program for them. But when we are our business, the two become very, very interlinked. And that's why a lot of the work that I do when it's around the fear is often the fear or the lack of self-belief is an emotion which is nothing to do with their business, which is actually to do with a long, long time ago, or something that someone said to them, or a belief they've built up over time. But that's playing like a record in the background all the time. So every time they compare themselves to someone online, or they get a no, or whatever or they get a troll making a comment, whatever it is, that record, that belief starts playing. But actually the two aren't interlinked. But the work that I do separates that, so it doesn't hold them back. It doesn't make them really, as you said, paralyzed, because they end up being gripped by this fear, or down this what if path.
And I think it ties in quite nicely to the question that I know you're bringing to the table today, because fear stops us doing some of the best and worst things, right? That inherent, I guess, caveman mentality of fight or flight. Is this a situation I need to run away from, or is this a situation I need to stand up and do something about? It really does control how far we're able to move our businesses forward. So tell us what your question is, because I'm really interested by this one.
Okay, so my question is that because of the type of work that I do and how I help women, a lot of people I speak to have huge resistance around investing in themselves, because they know they're going to have to be vulnerable. They know they're going to have to face emotions and truth within themselves. Their fear knows, and on a subconscious level, they know by working with me, things are going to shift and change. And fear doesn't like change. Fear's like to keep us in the nice little comfort zone. So sometimes a lot of coaching is required to get them to the point of investing. However, there's always a balance on how much you coach on said call, and then how much you leave it for them to make a decision, and you have to have a balance between where you sort of draw the line. So I wanted to know, what was your advice around that?
So it's a really interesting one, because I think it doesn't matter what anyone does. And I actually had a discovery call recently with somebody that I decided against working with. And I'll share the experience. Obviously, it is anonymous. And if this person's listening to the podcast, then this is the learning experience, right? And I was very honest on the call about why I would not be a good fit.
Yeah.
So I went through a discovery call process, and this person had filled out the pre-qualification questionnaire. They'd indicated they were interested in working with me. All great. And when we got onto the call, they decided that they wanted evidence of what I could do. Now, I'm absolutely all about customer doing your due diligence. Please make sure before you hire anyone and spend any money on them that you're going out, you're finding out more about them, you're looking at testimonials, you're looking at the reality of what it is like to work with that person and what could potentially work really well for you, and any concerns that you might have. But this person didn't want evidence based on what they could see from other people's achievements. They wanted me to coach them for free to help them make a decision. Now, in my mind, there is absolutely zero point in doing that, because if you have to convince somebody at the beginning of that process, and when somebody's looking for this free coaching as reassurance, oh, this is what I'm going to get, this is what I'm going to get every week, is this good enough for me to spend my money on? They're putting themselves in a position of scarcity.
Yes.
Because they're not judging it based on, I'm going into this, I'm really excited about the results, I'm really excited to work hard, I'm really excited about the plan of action that I can see coming ahead. They're looking at the coaching call and trying to find out what won't work. Oh, well, did I really like how she said that? Did I really like that I needed to be challenged on that? Did I really like how that was phrased? And they will look for the things that they want to pick at to justify the fact that they are a no. So my first opinion is always, free coaching is not free. It comes only, though, at the price to the business owner. It doesn't come at a price to the other person. They're not invested. They're not likely to use the information anyway. And 9 times out of 10, you're either going to remove them from paying entirely and they'll go away from the call, they won't purchase, or you're going to find that they're using it as a justification anyway.
Yeah.
Something that they don't want to do. So in your case, these women, they need help to make the decision, but that's not about giving them coaching in the other areas, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't be sat there going, okay, what is it that you'd really like to work on? Let me pick out a few points for you that I can intuitively feel into and guide you through. But, what I'd be doing is looking at their buying signals on the call and making sure you've got the pre-qualification questionnaire in place that indicates, are you ready and able to invest in yourself moving forward? Are you happy to do the work required to make sure that you get the results that you want? And then go through that process on the call. And when it comes to the end where you're talking about, because I think most of your clients, and correct me if I'm wrong here, their thought will be, am I good enough to spend the money on? Can I really spend money on myself? Is it selfish? Is that,
Yes. Yeah, I think, yes, they have that said, because obviously the work is around self-worth and around self-belief and that fear. However, I think some of them are, as you've described, I think though some of them are ready, they are ready to invest. They want to do the work. They want to make the investment, but fear is really playing a big part. And fear is very good at telling you a story that feels very real, even though it's not the truth. So part of it, I guess, is about letting them or allowing them to see what the truth is rather than what their fear is telling them. So that's slightly different to coaching them around a particular area. That's more allowing them to slightly change their perspective around the stories that fear is telling them. So I suppose it's a slightly different.
Yeah, and also you want to be focusing really on the education side of it rather than saying, okay, what's your story, and working them through that process. I would be telling them about, okay, sometimes when we make a big decision, fear can give you things that aren't necessarily representative of what are actually happening right now. Yeah. So I just want to bring you back into the moment and let you know where we are. We've discussed what your goals are. We understand where you want to go on the journey. We've looked at what's really holding you back, and we've identified X, Y, Z things. Yeah. And now we're at the point where you get to choose whether or not you want to move forward, whether you want to solve XYZ problems, or whether you'd like to stay where you are. And that's it. Because ultimately they don't need more than that. They don't need you to work through, okay, well, this is the story that I'm telling myself. Scott, when you edit this and all of these sirens are in the background, can you just keep this bit in there from me that is like, whoever has mugged somebody in Southampton today, like right outside my house, you are absolute toads. So they don't actually need more than that. They don't need more than a basic summary of the process and where they are, because all you're trying to do is bring the person back into the room to make the decision. Yes. You've done all of the hard bit, you've done all of the breakthrough stuff. And if it gets to the point where they are lost in fear, I think it's more about you taking them back to open-ended questions and saying, look, how is making this decision making you feel? Yeah. And that's when they can openly say to you, oh, okay, actually, I am really worried about spending the money, or I am really worried about what my husband, partner, spouse, kids, whatever are going to say. And that's when you get to say, right. And part of the work that we need to do, you know, and the reason it's so important is because you are feeling like this about every decision that you're making.
Yes.
Because they are. It's not just the decision they're trying to make with you. It's the decision that they're trying to make every day in every element of their life. So when you show them that, it becomes much easier for them to say, okay, actually, there isn't a dinosaur in front of me. I don't need to be legging it. I need to understand, what do I actually want?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so, no, it does. It is that, like you just said, the fear is underlying every decision. And I think that's a really good point, is the fact that it's, rather than coaching them as such, it's holding that mirror up as if to say, look, the reason that you're feeling this around those two decisions is because actually that's how it's playing out in your life anyway. And I think actually I probably do that automatically. But when you sort of think of it as what do I need to do? Whereas actually it probably naturally, I have that conversation without even, like a lot of these things, you naturally do it without thinking about it. But definitely when you said about the fear, that's what they're doing throughout their life. And that's why they need to work with me. That's with every decision. And it is just a case of, let me show this to you in a way that you can see it for what it is.
Yeah.
And then you can make the decision that you need to make.
And the other thing you've got to look at with them is consequences. Sometimes when we're stuck in fear, we don't look at consequences, and people don't tell us, because typically when we're upset or anxious or nervous about something, people don't want to give us the reality or the consequence of a situation, because they're worried that it will put us into more stress and more overwhelm. Actually knowing the reality of what will happen for people who are on a what if spiral is much more helpful. And if you can break it down simply on that call and say, look, your two choices are, you invest and you work through these particular elements and you achieve this transformation, or you choose not to invest and you don't do the work, and then you are stuck in this cycle for X amount of months until either you come back to me or you go to somebody else and you try and work through it again. And I think being really honest about those consequences, because what you're not saying is, if you don't buy from me, you won't be successful. You're highlighting, if you don't overcome this problem, it's going to take you a number of months for you to get out of the kind of fear mode and even book another call with somebody to talk about this issue again. Yeah. And that's okay. Like, there's no judgment with that, as long as you're happy that you are not going to move forward in that amount of time.
I think it's really important. I think you're right. You have to be that honest with people, because actually they can't be that honest with themselves. That's why you have a coach, because you can't see your own stuff, and you need someone to be that honest with you. And actually being that honest, for me, being that honest from the outset with a potential client, if that person doesn't want to have that much honesty or doesn't want to be taken to that place, they're not the right client for me anyway. And that's a good thing to find out and discover on that call.
Exactly.
I will take them to that place and more to get the results that they want. So you actually need to, you're right, you need to be that honest and say, this is what you're facing. And that, because you can take all the emotion away, because that's, you can take the emotion and say, in black and white, you can do this or you can do that. I can see that because I'm not feeling the emotion and the fear that you're feeling. And I think that's a really important part.
I think it is huge. I mean, it gives them that outside perspective, and that in reality is the kind of coaching that they're expecting. You know, that's the experience they need to help them make the decision. And all that your sales call is that empowered space to help them make an informed decision. You know, and I think one of the things that can sometimes happen for people who are perhaps newer to sales or who are newer to the industry is that when somebody is scared and when they're coming from a place of, I'm not sure I can buy this right now because insert reason here. And, you know, the reasons are always, I've got something on right now, you know, my dog is ill, my budgie is croaking, like my friend is upset. And, you know, there are lots of different reasons. And some of them are valid and some of them are complete bollocks. But sometimes when we're newer, it's easier to buy into their fear and say, okay,
yes, all
right then, I'm really sorry that's happening to you. Just pop on back when you feel like it. And it does two things. One, it completely gives away any control that we have over the situation. You're handing it over to somebody else, and you're kind of reliant on hoping that they can get themselves to a point where they make the right choice. And actually, if they do get themselves to that point, it's quite likely they won't go with you because you weren't able to show them what it was that they were missing. And then the second thing that it does is it puts an awful lot of pressure on the person on the sales call to try and figure out what it is that you're actually going to be doing with them. If you buy into that fear with them, it puts them in a situation where they think, well, is this person actually going to take me where I need to go?
Yes.
You know, is that possible for them? Or every time I'm worried about something, are they going to be worried about it? And therefore, do I have something I need to be concerned about?
Yeah. And also it's a confidence in that you're going to be able to do what you say you're going to be able to do and to be able to work with them. And you're right, you have to, from the outset, from the outset, being able to strong enough. And I think certainly in my experience at the beginning, when you first come into the industry, it's very easy to go, okay, yes, completely understand. And it takes your own sense of bravery, self-belief and confidence to say, actually, especially with someone you hardly know as well, if you haven't spoken to them very much, and you say that, I know what you're saying, but I want to show this to you from a different perspective. I want to show you that this is potentially your fear giving you a story. And I think that does come, well, it's certainly in my experience, that comes from doing lots and lots and lots of calls where you've spoken to lots of people and you become that more confident in yourself and your ability to say, I know this isn't the real reason, and therefore I can hold that space for you right now before we even begin.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I mean, I was talking earlier about the person who came on the discovery call and they wanted the free coaching. And every second question was, but I want you to coach me on this now. I want you to coach me on this element now. And I said, but that's not what I'm here to do. And all that you're doing is indicating that you are not going to make the right decision for you. You're going to pit me and potentially 3 to 4 other coaches against each other based on what you think the quality of our coaching is today, rather than looking at the proven results and plans and testimonials and actual fit that is right for you as a person. And so I explained about 3 or 4 times, I won't be working with you. I was like, we can have this call, we can continue the call, but at no point will I be making you an offer to work with me. And interestingly enough, you know, the person went away for a good couple of months and they came back and said, okay, I realize now where I went wrong. Can we do that again? Yeah. And then you do get people who are self-aware, who can manage it on their own, but it's very, very few and far between, you know. And again, when it came to the second call, the person did exactly the same thing. So it's not about what you say, it's about the delivery, and it's about the action you take. And unfortunately, you know, for that person in particular, when we finished the call, I said, look, you don't need another call with me, and you won't be open to another call with me for at least another 6 months, because what you've demonstrated is that you went away, you understood the problem, but you didn't want to action it. You wanted to stay stuck in your comfort zone, which ultimately wasn't taking you forward. And that's not going to change unless you do. So I think you're right, it does come with experience, but you also have to have clear boundaries around it and around that person's fear. And I think the one thing that I see, particularly for healers and intuitives and anyone who's in like health and wellness, discovery calls end up going on for hours. and they'll go way over 30 minutes and they'll be like 45 minutes, an hour and a half. And it's just not good. It's not good practice. It doesn't set the right boundaries in the first place. So what I'd encourage people to do, if your clients have a lot of fear around making the decision, I'd encourage them to take a step back and say, okay, look, I just want to let you know that we're at 30 minutes and that means that our time for today is up. Now, I know that you're not in a space to make the decision right now. So what I'm going to suggest is that we reconvene tomorrow or the day after, and you can have a 15-minute call where you can ask me questions around the plan that we've got laid out here and how to move forward. But that at the end of that call, you will be making a decision one way or the other. And let them go away, let them get that outside perspective. And then that way, when you take them onto your coaching calls, you're not ending up in a position where every coaching call, it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, because they've just got one more thing.
Yes.
And I think that's potentially my biggest issue with people who are making decisions from fear. We can't just stay on the call with them forever. We have to get them to that decision point. And sometimes getting them to that decision point is saying to them, okay, step back. If you're not ready to make the decision today, that's fine. I'm going to give you 48 hours. In 48 hours, you will have made a decision. If you don't make a decision, I will. Yeah. And I will retract the offer of working with me. And then you can go out and you can search for a solution that you think is going to meet your needs. But I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I didn't give you the ability to make the decision within a reasonable time frame, to give you perspective and to give you the space to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's the strong boundaries is a really good point. I think that a lot of the initial part of when you learn to coach and when you're doing this, the boundaries is really important, right from when your client can contact you, how long you spend on the calls. And I think that starts from that first initial conversation, so the client's aware. Like we said, it's about when you're talking about their fear, you're actually giving them an opportunity. You're letting them see the truth. You're saying to them, I want you to see things that you haven't seen. So already you're setting your stall out, if you like. You're setting how you work. And actually that's a really good thing, because they can like it or not like it. And as you say, they're going to make a choice at the end of it or not.
You know, you have to, and again, it does come down to that idea of actions and consequences. People have to understand that, you know, and it doesn't matter how desperate you are for business, nobody wants a nightmare client. No. Everybody's worked with a nightmare client at some point, you know, let's be very transparent about that. But nobody wants to bring them in. And if you have this relationship with a person who keeps coming back for multiple discovery calls, and every time they're full of fear, and it's not going to change from call to call. It won't. You might have a person who has like this moment of clarity and moment of awareness. And it's, like I say, it is very rare. And sometimes they'll come back to the call having had that clarity and awareness, and they still won't do anything. What you've really got to be thinking about is, how would my ideal client show up? And your ideal clients are in fear. They have huge fear. They have huge issues around self-worth and value and those kinds of things, but they take action anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the key bit for the call, right? So if you have somebody who is just so, I don't know what decision I'm going to make, and I don't know how, and oh my goodness, run. I think we also have to look at, okay, is this really somebody that I want as a client?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing I've learned a lot in the last 12 months is about letting go of that, because I would put quite a lot of my own energy, and not only time, but energy into that person as soon as they thought about working with me. And then I was realizing was just how much I was staying in that place for a want to serve, and wanting to help them as that is what I'm here to do. But actually a massive lesson that I've learned, and a really good lesson that I've learned, is to let that person go, because that, as you've described, is those people who are just in that place where they either want the answers now for free, or they're never going to move through their fear. And every excuse, like you said, the cat's ill, or there is always something, you get to understand that those people will always have an excuse. I think my thing was when they are ready to take action, it's just helping them through that last little bit. And that's when, as you say, you are saying those things that are going to make them slightly uncomfortable, but they need to see it in order to make the decision.
They do, 100%. And they also need reassurance. The biggest combatant really of fear is reassurance. And if you can reassure somebody in the process or during the process that they're doing the right things consistently, they're going to be much more likely to take action anyway, because they feel like it's going to be positive. Yes, it's going to be change. Yes, it's going to be scary. But if they feel reassured that you are going to be there for them 100% of the way, and actually you can tell them right now that at some points they are going to be incredibly uncomfortable and it's going to feel just like this. Sometimes it might feel easier, sometimes it might feel worse, but at no point will they be on their own and left alone to deal with it. That makes it easier. Having reassurance, giving somebody the ability to say, but what if I wake up in the middle of the night and it's really scary? Well, you can drop me an email and in the morning I'm going to get to it. And you'll know that just having it out on paper really makes you feel a lot better, and things like, oh, well, what happens if between sessions I feel like this? Well, this is how you deal with it. And this is what we do. And this are the coping strategies that we give to you. And, I think there's a lot to be said for making somebody feel wanted in a sales process, and going through a sales process and saying, yes, you are somebody that I would really like to work with. However, if you can't let your decision be made based on where you want to be, and you can only look at the here and now and how scared you are, then it doesn't matter, because that won't change once you sign up, right? That perspective doesn't change. What I can say is that if you do decide that you're going to make your decision, scary as it might be, from that future self perspective of, I really want to achieve this moving forward, then I'm going to be here for you 100%. And so, it's going to be scary, but it'll be a lot of fun, and it'll be this and it'll be that, and you'll feel like this. That's going to make people feel a lot more confident about hitting the buy button.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Does that help?
Really good. Yeah. Really good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Anything else on that I'm like, have I missed anything?
No, I think it's very good that we've, like, there are different types of the clients. So when you've got your never going to change, always going to sit in that place of fear, don't leave your energy with them. Don't, that's where they are. They might come back, as you said, they might have an awareness, they might have a moment. It's unlikely, but there's that sort of person. But there's also, as you've just said, there's somebody who wants to work with you, wants to make the commitment with themselves, wants to invest in themselves, wants things to change. But you just have to give them that little bit of time of saying, yes, it's going to be scary, but I'm going to hold the safe space. You're going to get, we're going to work through this together. As you say, all those, you can contact me. And that's a very different conversation to somebody who, like you described as the person that you spoke to, who wants everything for free and then isn't going to come through. And I think it's having that, your own awareness around it and the confidence to say, I'm going to hold this mirror up for you, but I'm going to start my job now, kind of thing. I'm going to start this bit of it now, so you can make that decision, the best decision for you, and whether it's right for you. Because you don't want a client that's not making that really informed, sort of quite a strong decision, even though they're fearful. A lot of my clients say, I feel really excited but really fearful at the same time, and that's the best, as far as I'm concerned, that's the best emotion for them to have.
And that's it. And I mean, the only other thing you can do is, if you're finding that lots of people are coming to the calls and they are in that fear space, is on your pre-call questionnaire, have a little section that just says, is there anything you're particularly nervous about or afraid of that you feel we might need to raise during this call? Do you feel like you have a particular story you're telling yourself that may rear its head during our time together?
Yes.
That gets out of the way in the open, because then you refer them back and you say, okay, well, do you remember in your questionnaire you said you do have a big problem with spending money on yourself, and that does make you feel uncomfortable, it does make you feel fearful, so could we look at this decision that you're now having to make and say it's potentially tied to that? And if they've already had that self-awareness moment of, oh, okay, then actually it does make it easier for them. So perhaps add that in as well.
Good idea.
And then that way, if they are going to be nervous, exactly where you're going to have to take them before you even do the call. Yeah. If somebody says money stories or whatever, you're like, right, okay, I know where I'm going.
And by them writing it down, as you say, that also puts it in front of them. And they might, on some level, make that link before you even get on the call.
Exactly.
That's a really good point. Thank you.
It's that kind of idea of self-mirroring. And you want clients that can do that to a certain degree.
Yes.
Because you have to, when you're being coached, you have to be self-aware enough to make certain choices.
Yeah.
And at least then you can take them back and say, well, 2 weeks ago when you filled this out, you told me that this was potentially a problem, or this is potentially something that's making you nervous. Here it is rearing its head in action.
Yeah.
What are you going to choose to do? Do you want it to take over? Do you want it to make the decision for you? Or are you prepared to let this be the final thing that it stops you doing?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you.
You're welcome. So how can people get in touch with you? Because honestly, I want to be completely honest about this. I've had readings from Louise before that have just been completely spot on in the creepiest / nicest way possible. Where she genuinely does tune into things that you are perhaps feeling, or even don't realize that you're feeling until somebody says, hey, check this. And you go, oh, right.
It's a bit like that, actually.
Yeah, it is like that. That's how I've always felt about it. I'm like, oh yeah, funny. So if you are feeling like there is something that is holding you back, that you have a limiting belief, or maybe you don't know what it is that's holding you back, and you know that there's some kind of issue, but you're not really sure, and you wish that somebody could just put their finger on your pulse and go, there you go, that's your problem. Where can they find you for that?
They can find me on my Facebook business page, which is Louise Harbutt Intuitive Coaching. And then my website is AnneLouiseHarbutt.com. They can find me in either of those places.
Perfect. And that will all be in the show notes as well. So if you guys want to go and check out Anne-Louise, you do want this mirroring experience, please make sure that you head over to her Facebook business page, to her website, and get in touch with her. She genuinely is one of the nicest people that I know, and has made huge differences to many, many people. So make sure that you go in and check her out. And obviously, if you've enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you leave us a little review. Let us know how we're getting on. Let us know if there's anything that you think you'd like to hear about on the podcast. And if you would like to come and join the conversation about sales any day, you can always join us over on Facebook and Smart Leaders Sales Society. That's the end of this episode. I will catch you on Monday for another deep dive training. See you then.